Welcome to the Living the Dream podcast with Curveball. If you believe, you can achieve. Hello and welcome to another episode of Living the Dream with Curveball. I am your host, Curveball, and today I am joined by a special guest. She is the one, the only Empress. She is a ballet dancer. She is a singer, songwriter. She even plays the piano and has written for a short film. She was the youngest to join the San Francisco Ballet. We're going to be talking to her about all those things and what she's doing now. So, Empress, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Why don't you start off by giving us a little background about yourself, maybe where you came from, how you got started, and anything else you might want the audience to know?
Sure. I grew up in a small mountain town called Lake Tahoe, California. There's really no performing arts culture, especially when I was growing up in that town. There's more now, but when I was growing up there was really no performing arts that I knew of, and my parents were not in that world, and I just grew up loving music, and that kind of translated into dancing to music, singing to music, everything, that music was to me was like, you could manifest it into physical movement, you could feel it, it was just music was always a big through line throughout my life. But my parents signed me up for ballet class when I was about 6 or 7, and I loved it. And at 7 years old, I wrote down my list of things that, like, my dreams and life goals that I wanted to accomplish. And my parents were really supportive growing up. So that was an assignment that they had me do to help me dream. And I wrote down 3 very specific things. I wanted to be a ballerina, I wanted to be an actress, and I wanted to be a singer. It was like that's it. No one in my family had ever done that before, and so they were all very sporty and athletic, and no one really knew what to do with me. So they signed me up for ballet class, as I said, and I excelled in my dancing. I took piano lessons. I had this wonderful teacher who was kind of like the Mary Poppins of music teachers, and made it so fun and helped me exercise my composing skills. So I started composing very young as well. Never sang. And flash forward, I ended up getting a full scholarship to go to the San Francisco Ballet School summer intensive, which at the end of the 5 week intensive, I was about 14. They asked me to join the school full time, and my parents were crazy enough to let me move to the city and train with San Francisco Ballet School. And at 16, I was the youngest member of San Francisco Ballet and one of the youngest in their history. I think there's only a few of us. This is the oldest ballet company in the country, by the way. So it was a huge deal. It was a really cool thing for me because I was just confirmed that when you dream big and you work, towards that dream, anything is possible, and that dreams are, they can become reality. And then that transitioned into my singing career. Ironically, there was a ballet in San Francisco Ballet's season that needed singers, which is like super random because we're a very seen, not heard kind of culture. The ballet is just a visual art form, and so making noise and breaking that silence was horrifying. But the first time that I ever sang was opening night for West Side Story Suite, and I was Anita, and I had this big solo, and I was so nervous. And at the end of the show, I got this huge standing ovation. I was on the front page of the newspaper the next day. I was this huge buzz, and this man was sitting in the audience who was, 6 years later, was casting a Broadway show and needed ballerinas who could sing, and remembered that I could sing and offered me a contract to go to Broadway. So after 11 years of being in San Francisco Ballet, I was offered a contract to go to New York and be in this original cast of this show called An American in Paris, which ended up winning a bunch of Tony Awards, and it was a really cool experience. And I later got to do the lead role in that. And so doing the lead role in my first Broadway production, being called an actress for the first time in my career was really cool. And it was a full circle moment, thinking about my 7-year-old self being like, wow, I'm an actress now. And breaking that silence as a dancer, I kind of was a closeted singer and songwriter for many years, and didn't really think that anyone would ever understand my lyrics. It was just like, just basically therapy for me. And one day I decided to share it with a couple friends on Broadway, and they gave me why haven't you ever done this before? You're a singer. Like this is the new you. And so anyway, that transitioned after Broadway. I just felt like I had gone from such a quiet world, broke the silence, went to Broadway, and like after that I just couldn't shut up. So it was a natural transition for me to become a singer-songwriter, and then I wanted to create something that I was really proud of, so I became Empress. And Empress to me was finally becoming, especially as an artist, the ruler over my own life, and not, ruling over anybody else, but inspiring people to also find a way for them to feel empowered and, inspired to become the ruler over their life and the empress or emperor over their world, and kind of create their own place, where we can all coexist as rulers over our own life, and not have to like dominate over other people always or point fingers outwardly. It was all very internal stuff that I was just kind of trying to create a world where I didn't have to just be boxed in and labeled. And being Empress, I felt like I had the freedom to be a ballerina, an actress, a singer, a songwriter, a composer, a creator in one place for the first time. Because when I was in the ballet, I was always considered, especially after I sang, everyone's like, "Oh, our new little Broadway star." And then I went to ballet to Broadway, and everyone called me a prima ballerina, and I was like, "Why can't I just, be me wherever I am and whatever I'm doing?" Because, it's just people like to box you in, and I like to blow up those boxes. So that's how I kind of became Empress. And since then, it's just kind of fallen into place, and I get to talk to amazing people like you and share my message. So that's a little nugget about me. And it's a lot longer than I think you thought I was going to be. So thank you.
That's perfect. So let's talk about the San Francisco Ballet. Let's talk about the things you guys
Yeah.
did. You danced all
Yeah.
around the world. Tell us about some of those places and what that experience was like, and also the different type of musics that you
Yeah.
danced to.
Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, we get to perform to live music all day, every day. So we have a pianist in every class rehearsal, and then in performances, depending on what kind of, piece you're performing, it's always a live performance, and it's so amazing. So like I learned so much from the San Francisco Ballet Orchestra, from just listening to incredible composers, but then getting to see it and hear it live every night, and starting to, I was always really close with the members of the orchestra. I'd always hang out down there in the basement, and ask them questions, and they'd teach me about different instruments. And I called myself a professional clapper for many years when I was in the school. Most people do not know this, but to start the audience, to like for the applause, to start the applause, there's someone in the orchestra pit that, claps. They start the clapping so that people know that, okay, now it's time for, the this show to start. It kind of gets everyone's attention. And it's a really cool thing. I did this for like 5 years. Every single performance, I would run downstairs to the basement, unless I had to be on stage like right away, the beginning of a show. I would be in the orchestra pit starting the clapping. And it was so fun because I got to get to know all the orchestra members, because I'd hang out before the show with them. they would be teaching me about their instruments and stuff. And so it was really cool. And then when I was on stage, we'd always smile and wink at each other. And, if it was okay, if I wasn't front and center or something, I'd be on the side and I'd just kind of nod a little or wink at people. So it was always a really strong connection to music. And we got to do it like, oh man, I have my favorite composer of all time is Philip Glass. And I'll never forget the first time I heard that music with a live orchestra. I was just mesmerized and so inspired. And, of course, there's Tchaikovsky, there's Stravinsky, there's, just, I mean, you name it. If it's classical or even slightly contemporary, it's, Beethoven. I've danced to it, to live music. So that was really cool. And to be able to travel the world, I had never traveled. I was from a small town. So I basically went from my small town to San Francisco. And then my first tour was to Paris, and I had never been overseas. And that was an amazing experience to just like to all of a sudden be thrown into this world where we're meeting the president of France and getting to go to their house for cocktail receptions. I'm 16, so I'm just like, my mind is blown. And I've met the president of Iceland, and we've gone to China and met all the ambassadors there, and just amazing people that you get to meet. Over the years, I've been all over the world, and so grateful for that experience, and to be thrown into that world from again a small town was like, you know very interesting and very fun and very, I just learned so much.
Absolutely. Sounds like
Mhm.
fun. So
Yeah.
let's talk about your Broadway show. Tell
Yeah.
everybody who might not know what this show was and, tell us about
Sure.
it and tell us about your experience there and how did you like it?
Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, it was like the best thing for me to transition into the Broadway world because it was another component of my artistic, career. And I always think of my career as an artist as if I'm a dry sponge thrown into a big bucket of water. I'm just absorbing as much information as I possibly can. And, I just expand more and more every day. So for me as an artist to be able to, and a storyteller on stage, to be able to tell stories with words and be able to express yourself with song, that was really, really cool and exciting element because we were still doing tons of different styles of dance, which I grew up doing every kind of dance possible. So it wasn't like that scary to be tapping or doing something, but to be able to do it all in one place, I was like, this is amazing. And the artists in that show were so talented. The casting director spent 2.5 years casting that show. Just like the best casting director, I think, in Broadway, which is Rachel Hoffman, with Bernie Tesley, is like, oh my gosh, she worked so hard on that, and it really showed. I've done other shows since, and really the show's success all rides around the casting director. They have to, they have to cast the right people, and not only did Rachel cast the show so well with talent, she casted an incredible cast of people, and so the synergy and like just the professionalism in that show is so cool. So American in Paris is, for those that don't know, is a old 19, I think 56 movie that won, best an Oscar for best picture. And it starred Gene Kelly and Leslie Caron. It was George and Ira Gershwin music, and it was a huge success. It's one of Gene Kelly's, biggest hits besides Singing in the Rain, of course, but you know, of his career, it was a really big one. There's this huge ballet at the very end of the show. That's a huge musical part with this incredible music from George Gershwin, George and Ira, and it was 26 years in the making to get this show to Broadway. I mean, like this was a really cool thing because I was about 26 when I joined the show, so I thought, well, this I was born to do this, And so it was just a really cool experience to be there. I immediately started taking acting lessons with this amazing acting coach named Joan Rosenfels in New York. and she kicked my little butt every week, and I got, very confident in my acting skills in New York. And I ended up getting cast as the lead role thanks to all the hard work that I put into my acting. Got cast as the lead role in American in Paris. So I ended up, I started in the ensemble and worked my way up and ended up getting to do the lead, which was really satisfying and also proves again that when you dream big and you're willing to do the work that it takes to make that dream a reality, that those dreams will always come true. So that was really special for me. And I was super grateful to work with the Gershwin family, who are all family friends now, and some incredible artists that are just the most talented people I know.
Absolutely. Now, let's switch over and talk about your music career. Let's talk about your singing and also the famous producers that you work with and
Yeah.
also the music that you've written for a short film.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. Well, the short film started first because I still hadn't like, quote unquote found my voice. I was later in life when I realized I could sing, but the composing was always there for me. So I was 4 years old when I first started composing, and it was just, me doodling, apparently, like doodling on the piano. So I didn't really realize that that's what composing was, and then it just sort of I have these melodies that are always in and out of my head, and if I'm smart enough to write them down or to go run over to the piano before they kind of, you forget them, then I have a song. And these melodies are haunting. Sometimes you want to just sleep and this all you can do is just this melody is on repeat in your head. So I was always good at composing, and I have a really good ear for music. And so I met this up and coming uh, director who needed music, and there was dancing in the film that he was working on, and so it just worked really well. And I love working on film, and especially like not necessarily just classical, but neoclassical contemporary music is so fulfilling to create, and to put it to a visual is always really fun. So that was a really cool experience. I've done that a couple times with different films, and it's always really a fun challenge. It's not that hard. It's just really fun. That was the wrong word. It's not a challenge. It's really fun. So, and then singing, that I told you about that with the West Side Story. I After that performance, I really just felt like I had taken a leap of faith in my singing, and it was rewarded when I jumped off. I realized I could fly in a way, and I found so much freedom in expressing myself in lyrics, and I pour my heart and soul out into each song that I write. And over the years, with all the connections that I've met through the ballet and on Broadway, people have introduced me to some incredible people that I've collaborated with, including my songwriting partner, Alexandra Forbes, who is a hit maker and an incredible songwriter and wordsmith, and she is also a songwriting coach. And so we started writing music together, and I don't think she's realized that she's taught me so much. I mean, I had already had kind of the natural component, but I didn't know why things worked. She's kind of explained to me why songwriting is the way it is, and how you can break rules, but you can only break them if you know them. And, it's just, she's a stickler to making sure that the song is authentic to you, and that it's something you believe in, because at the end of the day, I'm going to be the one that has to stand on stage and sing about it. So if I don't believe in it, no one else will. And so she's just amazing. And through our work together, I was introduced to this guy named Bart Shodell, who is a multi Grammy nominated producer and works with the top singers, pop singers in the industry, from Beyonce. Like his two Grammy Award nominations was for Beyonce and Justin Bieber. So that was already really, quite an incredible accomplishment on his end. And since then has attracted, I mean, he works with Billie Eilish and Camila Cabello and, Katy Perry and Rihanna when she was singing, and like all these incredible artists. So, fighting over his time is always a bit of a challenge, but he always makes time for me because we love working together. I feel like we're both each other's musical soulmates and we have so much fun. He's such a kind soul, and I'm just so grateful to actually have him on my team. And through him, of course, he opens all these doors for me to work with other people, and so I'm forever grateful for him. And now I'm starting to work with these teams in the UK and in Europe that are doing some cool remixes. I'm not that savvy when it comes to remixes, but gosh, they're really fun to be making right now with all the songs that I have currently. And so the last little thing I'll leave you with my music is that I'm finally releasing an EP this spring, and I will have a album by the end of the year, which is really cool. So this is all my debut, music endeavors. So I'm very excited about sharing those with everybody.
Well, I'm gonna put you on the spot like I do all my musicians that I interview. Why don't you go ahead and sing a little something for us? Maybe a verse from your top single or something, just so we can
Ooh,
kind of give us a sample here.
you did not warn me on that one, but okay, I will
Oh, I
totally
never
do that.
do. I never do.
All right, this one's from, I'll do one from We Own This Crown. And this is like just the pre chorus, chorus section. So, up from the underground, finally ready now. Seeds I've sown, I'm not alone. I'm seeing from every side. Shadows are made of light. This is home. Now on this crown. Now on this crown. Now on this. And scene.
Man, you sound like Kelly Clarkson. Now,
Oh, thank
this
you.
this EP that's coming out, how do we get a hold of it? I definitely want to follow your music and,
Thank you.
tell us as much as you can about the album. You getting any radio play? How do we get a hold of your stuff?
Yes, I am getting some radio play, which is really exciting, and Spotify playlist plays and things. The upcoming album, you can basically follow me by going to my website first and signing up for a newsletter. So www.empress-music.com. You can kind of just see what I'm all about, and all of my links to my music and my social media channels are all there. But if you want to follow me on Instagram, it's empress.music. And that's kind of the same on Facebook and Twitter. And then I'm on all music streaming platforms and YouTube and everything. It's just Empress. So the EP is called We Own This Crown. The basic sort of idea behind this is actually that each person wears their own crown, and it looks different. For instance, like mine, well, I always liked sparkly tiaras, which is probably why I joined a ballet company. But I love sparkly tiaras. For instance, for you, it's going to be a baseball cap with your, baseball. It's going to be a doctor's scrubs. It's going to be a helmet for a fireman. It's going to be a helmet for a little girl that's learning how to ride a bike for the first time. Everybody's crown is different, and we don't have to wait for somebody else to put it on our heads. So I guess, being in the ballet for so many years and playing all these princesses and queens and empresses on stage, I had to do research and understand why, a crown is what it is. And from all of the wearing it, I've kind of realized how much insecurity is built into a crown because it's never actually owned by the monarch, and it's always given to the next monarch. It's, there's always someone in line waiting in the wings to kind of take it from you. So unless you actually own your own crown and do a self coronation, you never really have this security of feeling like you're the ruler over your own life and the creator of your own happiness. And so, like, just imagine a world where each one of us gets to build our own crown, put it on our heads, and then, like, live a life where we're not pointing outwardly, we're pointing our finger inwardly and taking responsibility and ownership over our own lives. And I think that if we could just live in a world that was kind of like that. I think it would change some dynamics for sure. I think we would take care of our, ourselves. If we can take care of ourselves, we can take care of the world. And it's as simple as that. And so that's kind of the message behind We Own This Crown and the, what I'm doing as Empress.
You definitely own the crown. And listeners, I'm going to put the website in the show notes, so make sure you sign up to keep up with Empress. Is there anything
Yay.
that we need to discuss that you want to talk about that I've missed?
No, that was such a great interview, and I'm so glad that I got to share my story with your listeners.
Absolutely. And we're definitely going to be checking you out and following you. I wish you much success. Empress, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks so much for having me.
And listeners, please be sure to subscribe, rate, and review, and share after listening. For more information on the Living the Dream podcast, visit www.djcurveball.com. Until next time, stay focused on living the dream.